December 2nd, 2025. Winter day, a reminder that Christmas isn't far away, so, Christmas holidays anyway, so. We need a motion to accept the agenda, moved by Pickard, second by Way. Is there any additions to the agenda? Councillor Way.
Like to have discussion about Bill 60 for conservation authorities.
Roll 6, please. Anything else? I think that, under discussion items, the future of the lower tier. As agenda, or as amended, any other additions to the agenda? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Any declaration of community interest in the general nature thereof? Councillor Bruckner.
Yeah, I had a conflict of interest with the drainage report for the Whaley Drain and possible bylaw.
Okay. That's noted, you filled out the paperwork and sent it in, clerk says he's got it. Any other declaration of community interest? Seeing none, minutes of the preceding meeting, November 10th, the special budget meeting, moved by Gillard, seconded by Way. Any errors or omissions in that mails? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, that's carried. And the minutes of the November 18th council meeting, moved by Thurston, seconded by Pickard. Any errors or omissions in those minutes? Yes. Notice of motion for business plan and for, oh, sorry. That doesn't belong here. Okay, any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Business arising from the minutes. Denny, I guess that's you. Clerk CO 60.
Through the mayor, nothing else to add, and most council special like of an answer.
Any questions from council on CO 60? Seeing none, we have a motion then moved by Bruckner, second by Gillis. Result, Council Township Surface Officer received report CO 60 2025 business rising from minutes of November 18th 2025 as information. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. First delegation is for the Committee of Adjustment. And so we need to move into the Committee of Adjustment, moved by Gillis, second by Way. The council move into the Committee of Adjustment for minor variance application A16 2025, submitted by Ron Scott, property located at 263842 Gross Road. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that are carried. We have second by the Okay, we're now in Committee of Adjustment. It's Rhonda. Rhonda, do you want to come up to the table so we can see you and you can see and hear us better? So the Committee of Adjustment looks just like council because it basically is council. It's just that they have to sit as a judiciary body in this form. So go through the same process. We have an agenda to follow. The planner provides a report. Then you have the opportunity to ask or make any comments you want. Council has an opportunity to raise questions, and Councilor Pickard, yes.
I'd like you to follow the agenda, please.
Of course,
Okay.
I'm just explaining to
Oh,
the
that's
applicant what's happening. So, okay,
So,
so I've called the meeting to order. We need a motion to accept the agenda. Moved by Way, seconded by Thurston. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Any declaration of pecuniary interest? Seeing none. Minutes of the November 4th Committee of Adjustment meeting, moved by Way, seconded by Gillis. Any errors or any errors or adjustments, changes to that? Seeing none, all those in favor of the minutes? Opposed, that's carried. And now we're down to minor variance application A16 2025. So again, planner gives a report, council can ask questions just for clarification. Then you have your opportunity to make any comments you want. And then we can ask anyone in the public, which either here or online, if they have any comments. And then the committee will make a decision. Okay, so Laurel, please.
Great, thank you. Through you, Mayor Mayberry and members of the committee. I'm here to present the minor variance for Rhonda and Julie Scott. Rhonda is the applicant for this application for 263-842 Pres Road. The reason for the minor variance is to permit a 111.5 square meter or 1,200 square foot detached additional residential unit in the rear yard of the property. The zone of this property is residential existing zone, and the designation is agricultural reserve. The application was circulated, as all applications are, to staff and to the public. There were no staff comments. I would like to point out, however, that the applicant has been working very closely with our building services team to ensure that everything is in line with the application. In terms of public comments, we did receive one letter of support for the proposal. It was actually received from the abutting property owner, so the property where the area will be in the rear, not in the rear yard of that abutting property, but they will be able to see the ARU. So they indicated their support for this application. The proposal is generally consistent with the official plan with respect to development of properties in the agricultural reserves, specifically permitting ARUs. So as we've talked about, the official plan does permit ARUs in the agricultural reserve. And it lists several policies that were that applicants are required to adhere to. So ARUs needs to be secondary to a principal dwelling. There needs to be adequate infrastructure, direct vehicle access, needs to preserve vegetation where possible, and be compatible with surrounding uses. For detached ARUs, there are also additional policies. So we require a lot area of 0.6 hectare minimum, and that's to ensure that there is adequate room for the required infrastructure, so septic and well. We need to consider privacy and compatibility, and ARUs need to satisfy minimum distance separation 1 or not reduce an existing insufficient setback. In terms of the zoning bylaw, the proposal is generally consistent with the ARU provisions provided in the zoning bylaw. The one variance requested is to permit an ARU of greater than 50% of the gross floor area of the principal dwelling. So in this case, the gross floor area of the principal dwelling is 1,800 square feet. So 50% of that would be 900 square feet. The proposed ARU is 1,200 square feet, which is 66.7% of the size of the principal dwelling. So it is an increase. But I'd like to note that although it's an increase to the 50% cap, it is still less than the maximum permitted gross floor area for all ARUs, which is 1,507 square feet. So they're still within that maximum, well within that maximum cap. The ARU will remain secondary to the principal dwelling. Staff is satisfied that the proposed variance is reasonable and will maintain the general intent of the purposes of the zoning bylaw. So consistent with township staff's review, planning staff are satisfied the proposal is generally consistent with the intent of the official plan and that the requested variance meets the intent of the zoning bylaw provisions regarding detached ARUs and can be given favorable consideration. I would like to note that in the original circulation, we did request a variance to the distance between the principal dwelling and the ARU. However, that was an error. In the RE zone, there is no maximum distance between ARUs and principal dwellings. So the recommendations reflect that is not actually needed. And I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, so any questions for the committee on this application? Okay. Rhonda, any comments you want to make?
No, I'm good.
We're satisfied with the recommendations in the report, I assume, so.
Yes.
Okay, okay. Anyone in the public want to speak in favor of the application? Anyone in the public want to speak opposed to the application? Do we have anyone online? Nobody online? So now questions and comments from council. Council Williams.
I was just a little concerned when it was supposed to be put right behind the neighbor's dwelling, but apparently he's okay with that, so that clarifies that question.
Sure. Any other questions or comments? The property does kind of fall away behind the house, there's a bit of a dip there, so I wondered the same thing. And wondered why they wouldn't have moved a little further back, but it is kind of up on a higher ground there, so it makes sense to me. Any other questions or comments? Seeing none, need a motion. But good. So we can make mistakes, we need a motion here, a decision, and the decision of the committee is. Councillor Craig.
I'd like to approve it.
Move to approve, you have a second, seconded by Way, any discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. So, the minor variance is approved, there is there an appeal period on residential minor variance? There is, okay, it's zone change, okay, and the appeal period is 20 days from the day it's mailed out. So the decision will probably be mailed out tomorrow, 20 days from tomorrow, if nobody's appealed. Then you can make the building permit. And, you know, Brad Smell at the end there, he's the one that will help you with that, so, okay? And in
Okay.
fact, you can talk to him now if you want about any process.
We've been talking.
Okay, no, just for one next. Don't want to have any hiccups or roadblocks, so. Okay, thanks very much, Brad, for your, program this morning. Yeah, take care. We need a motion now to adjourn, moved by Gillis, second by Booker. Any discussion, all those in favor? Opposed, that's clear. And now we're down to, the 9:15 appointment. Durham Home Board. I don't see the rain here. Dave? Okay, okay. I suspect these. Well done. Folks in the audience, are you here for the drainage report?
Yes.
Okay, that's a few minutes, so. I think it's at 9:45. But it's nice and warm in here, so. Okay. Okay, so let's move on then to staff reports, staff CEO 42.25, Julie, please.
Okay, so council has, thank you, Mayor, and Harry, the council has seen this report before. The report is to secure approval for the 2026 cost of living adjustment to the township pay band grid. This is in accordance with the township's payroll administration policy. The annual COLA adjustment typically follows the October year-over-year. And this year, the rate for Ontario, October to October is 1.8%. So this report is seeking council's approval for the application of the COLA increase to the township pay band grid, and this is the amount that has been adjusted within the draft 2026 budget.
Any discussion or questions, Councillor Wade?
Just some clarification. What's the difference between the cost of living and the consumer price index? Are they kind of this? One is a provincial and one's federal? Is that what it is? What's the difference between the two of them?
It depends what you put in. So the cost of living includes more than the consumer price index. If I remember right. So if you need things like housing or transportation or something else, that's a different effect.
Yeah.
So.
So I take it
Which
that-
one is which?
So I did a very quick Google search, and it says the cost of living is an increase in benefits to counteract inflation, while CPI measures the average change in prices of goods and services, which serves as the basis for calculating the cost of living.
Okay.
So the cost of living is the average increase of inflation. And the CPI is the actual cost of the increase.
Right.
Okay. All right. Anyway, many years ago, we chose COLA as the number we're going to use for Ontario, and unless you want to change, that's the report. Any discussion on this? Seeing none, we have a motion then to approve. Moved by Gillis, second by Gerson, result council. You see report CEO 42/2025, 2026 cost of living adjustment. Township pay band grid as information for the council approve the application of cost of living adjustment of 1.8% to the township pay band grid for 2026. Applied to time work in 2026. Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, opposed, motion carried. So, it's been paid, so next budget, so, when I suggest we can increase it, I think that's going to go up in the morning, but I won't be here, so don't worry about it, okay. I'm just wondering, got a couple minutes before, hello, Beachville's here. Will we go ahead with the Beachville, presentation? Stephanie's here. Come on up to the table, Stephanie, our previous, presentation hasn't shown up yet, so we'll let you go first if you like.
Then give me the heads up to show up at 9:15, so we're tracking along well. Okay, so I'm just gonna provide a bit of context to the way that our budget has evolved since last year. And I'm hopeful that if council has any questions, that those can come forward, and I'm more than happy to kind of add more nuance where requested. But in my package, you'll see that I submitted the budget figures and then a bit of context according to the sections of our budget. So one of the things that I want to draw out is, of course, if you're looking at our revenue section, we are expecting a growth in our budget from 2025. And I do, if we're looking at this revenue piece, one of the things that I want to draw out is that we are expecting revenue growth from a number of different streams that represent the museum's income. So that's not to say that any of these increases are going to fall on one aspect of museum operations or one contributing partner, or it really is meant that all of our programs are showing growth in revenue, our events are showing growth in revenue. And so the budget does show that if you're looking at individual line growth across the revenue section. So to just jump quickly into expenses, then we'll start with the administration section. This is a section where one of the key increases we're seeing is a request for additional office equipment. Last year, we had 5 staff during the summer months, and we were working off 3 computers, which when we're checking program registrations and working off shared Google Drive documents, that those abilities to access a computer is really important. So you'll see that under the office equipment line. You'll see some growth in the bookkeeping line, and that's again because the growth the museum has created just more traffic in programs and events, more transactions. That all needs to be processed by our contract staff. So some increase there. The other piece that I mentioned in my notes is just that we're handed down some increases in costs for our pest control and alarm monitoring. These are really central pieces to just managing the facility and preserving the collection and making sure the collection is kept safe. So those pest control increases through ABLE and the alarm monitoring increases through Security One are ones that we wanted to make sure were reflected in this budget as we anticipate what 2026 charges might look like. The other piece that I do just draw attention to is the relatively new line, which is called service charges. This is one that council might not have seen in our past budget, but it is our attempt to try to really reflect how taking debit and credit transactions through point of sale systems like Clover, there are charges that are pulled from the revenue. So initially we weren't really seeing those costs because we were just getting the deposits back from those platforms, and we're really just trying to understand what the costs are operating those debit and credit transaction options for our customers, visitors, users, guests, etc. So that's just to kind of give you a sense of the main areas in administration that will have changed between 2025 and 2026. With curatorial expenses, this section remains somewhat the same from 2025. And in fact, it's the budget reflects a $500 decrease in expenses, but there are some major changes in terrain that have impacted these lines. So one of the things is we have seen a huge growth in our volunteer base at the museum. Volunteers contribute numerous hours. I think in my report it's over 2,500 hours year to date this year for the museum. That is a huge contribution that doesn't get reflected in our budget because it's in-kind hours that they're giving us generously. But for us to be able to host them, show appreciation for them, recognize their work, there are some nominal costs there that we're looking to add into the budget and make sure we're properly hosting and training and providing for our volunteers. The other thing that we noticed is our advertising costs have gone up. Again, this is just when you have more programs and more events to promote, that there's additional advertising fees there. The car shows have been doing really well for us as far as generating revenue and some of the ways that we get the word out about that car show. And we can all appreciate how much competition there is as far as having car shows through the spring and summer season is through Old Autos. And so we want to make sure we can continue to do that in 2026. There have also been significant challenges in sourcing conservation supplies as a result of some of the tariffs, as a result of some of our actions with the United States. We do use a Canadian company, Car McLean, but they source quite a lot from the US. And so there have been changes as far as cost to those conservation supplies for housing, preserving our artifacts, and but also in as far as freight and shipping fees have come. So we're keeping an eye on that. To this point in 2025, it's just slowed down our ability to actually acquire those supplies. So the spending has slowed down as a result of all of those challenges. But we will see at the end of the year, we have beautiful etching that we just recently had conserved. And again, hopefully in 2026, we'll have an opportunity to pick some items out of the collection that need some more focused conservation work. So those are just those notes on the curatorial section. So then just moving quite along here, our maintenance lines, our payroll and wages. Okay, so this is one of the areas where you're going to see the biggest shifts in our budget. The numbers here do really reflect quite a lot of work that's been done on the part of the board of directors, as well as the part of a third party consulting firm, Warden Up to Grove. Both of our full-time staff contracts are up at the end of this year, so December 31st, we're tracking quite closely to that. And so it was thought by the board that it's a good time to kind of look into the wages, compensation strategies, et cetera. Partially this is because we understand that these lines are such core pieces of our funding agreement with both townships and both councils. So we want to make sure that when we're populating numbers into these fields, that they are informed, that they're fair, and that they reflect some of the similar compensation strategies of both townships. So Warden Up to Grove completed a market review of our two main positions, and did that through the work of consulting with Charity Village, as well as the Canadian Museum Association and some of their internal databases to get us a sense of what those positions by market value are being paid. The board has had many conversations since these figures were presented, just about what that might look like to get those positions up to market value or up to market rate, and talking just about how to proceed to make sure that we're not continuing to lag or continuing to fall behind market as we move ahead as a nonprofit and as an employer, sorry. So that you'll see the major changes will include the contract or the curator and assistant wages line, as well as the benefits, which is at the very bottom of that section there. Moving into maintenance then, we luckily had staff at SWAX help us with an energy audit this year that has given us some data that we can work forward to trying to become more efficient, energy efficient, and we've had some interaction with the Energy Committee to also consider that as we're moving ahead of some of our capital projects. Lawn and ground maintenance, we saw a significant increase this year, which we want to have reflected in the 2026 budget. Really the majority of the other lines there are remaining the same, although we all know garbage tags are going up this year too. So that shows a slight increase in janitorial supplies for the 2026 year. The last piece I'm really going to address is the capital planning line, which falls under long-term projects. And this is a really key project for the museum. It's one that has been on the board's radar and presumably on township's radar for a number of years, which is the barn #1 renovation, specifically to climate control that barn. We have been lucky enough to have support from staff here to finalize or get some drawings going, engineered drawings going, that will help us make sure that this project execution goes smoothly. This is a scale of project that our institution has not overseen in recent years, and so it's very important that we have detailed drawings that we can take to tender. So that was something that was accomplished this year. But really, if we're looking at the core objectives of this project, it's to make sure that the artifacts that are in those barns are properly preserved, For 30 years, those barns have not been climate controlled, and those artifacts have been out in those barns during the winter and the summer. Those barns are only accessible to the public partially through the year, because they're not climate controlled. And so these upgrades are gonna improve access for our visitors. These upgrades are gonna improve the state of our artifacts, and most importantly, these upgrades are gonna allow us to continue to grow our collection. All year long, we have had donors coming in from both townships, dropping off items, family heirlooms, historic pieces, remnants of communities and businesses that no longer exist in our townships. And we need to have some place to store those. And currently, our storage facilities in the museum will not allow us to continue collecting for, say, 20 more years, right? So this is looking ahead, and it's hopefully an opportunity for us to continue to bring provincial and federal funding to our township here through this type of project and see the facility improved in a responsible way. We do not want to see a new build or a requirement to move our facility to another location. The historic site is really important to us, and using existing infrastructure, upgrading, renovating existing infrastructure is something that, you know, that all levels of government that are involved in this ISA project really, I think, see value in. So that's the context. However, as you're seeing, the project amounts are broken down in the blue section on our budget. So that includes a 93,750 to SWACS for that 75% portion of capital projects. The museum has the $31,250 there. Please do note that where this project is sufficiently completed in the eyes of the province and the federal government, 27,750, it will be claimed back for SWACS, and 9,250 can be claimed back for the museum and the historical society. Those figures are based on our engineer's best construction estimates. And again, I know that it's a large project, but it is one that we were hoping to piece apart in 2024, 2025, 2026. Just based on some planning delays and the weight on these drawings and getting a proper sense of the company that can execute this. We are now kind of seeing it all lumped into 2026 calendar year. So happy to take any questions.
Okay, questions from council? Councilor Trigger.
This report from Warden Upgrove, at what percentage, or what percentile do they suggest you pay? Or what's your board's policy on paying at what percentile? So are you paying at the lower end or at the higher end?
So Warden Upgrove did ask the board to determine their compensation strategy. That was not something that they imposed or specifically dictated to the board. The board had conversations at their meeting about where both townships pay at. And so the thought was that we would meet market value, market rates, as both townships tend to do at the 50th percentile. So
Is that the 50th percentile?
that's correct. Yeah.
The other question I have is, how many visitors go through the museum facilities each year?
So we had over 4,000 visitors last year, which was significantly higher than I've ever seen it in my 7 years there. We typically have operated around 2,000 visitors a year, so that's almost doubling last year just based on our traffic. So that's just a quick answer to your question.
One last question, why do you not charge?
So that has come to conversations quite a number of times at the board. Our donations, if you're able to take a look at the budget numbers, our admission by donation has brought in more money than admission by charging for our data that we have. So generally speaking, our donors tend to be, our contributors tend to be more generous when they're making their own calls on how much to contribute than we're putting a cost out to them. This is also somewhat informed by the museums that we know, not only in Oxford County, but even further afield in kind of our region. There are museums that are still charging admission costs $3-5 per person. And again, based on our admission numbers, donations tend to be more generous than what we would be asking if we were in that range.
Any other questions? Not seeing a fairly healthy increase in the budget, but the direction of council was to deal with the issues and staff and I think it was a recommendation of the our representatives on the board that we move forward with this way. So Any other questions? Okay, well, actually, we will be working on budget this afternoon, well, maybe this morning if we get there in time. So we'll let you know as soon as we can. Thanks, Stephanie.
Thank you, council.
Okay, we've got time, so, and Carol, you want to come up to the table and we'll. The fellows, all the good news that, Durham Center.
Durham Center is in good shape financially. We've had a real increase in renters this year, which is good. We seem to be at the sweet spot. No real big changes in our operating budget. We're asking for $5,130 to make up the balance of what we haven't, what we don't have. And really, there's no significant changes in terms of what it is that we're doing from an operating budget perspective. And we just asked, we've assumed a 2% inflation rate for next year.
You want to go ahead with the capital plans and then we'll, I'll be talking about so.
Sure. So for next year, we're just looking at refacing the cabinets underneath the stage. I don't know if you've been in the hall. A couple of years ago, we did the kitchen. But the cupboards underneath the stage are still the old plywood doors and stuff. So we just kind of want to reface that so that it matches the kitchen up right now. And then after Saturday, so that was only going to be about 5,000 to put new doors and just to reinforce it. After Saturday's event that we had Christmas in the village and we served chili and stuff. We thought how nice it would be to have a little busing trolley on the main floor with bus bins to put dirty dishes in. So that 5,000 is probably going to increase a little bit because I think we can reconfigure underneath the stage for a busing trolley to go underneath. So that we can just open the doors, pull it out and then wheel it around and put dirty dishes and stuff and then just hand the bins up. So it's probably going to be a little bit more than the 5 that we presented in the plan, but it shouldn't be too much. We've got the space, which is just gonna be to reconfigure, take out the shelves and reconfigure a spot that we can push that little trolley in. For 2027, we're looking at some audio video materials or system. We've got people that are using it for birthdays and celebration of life, and everybody wants to present something on a screen. So we're kind of looking at something in an AV system that will allow people to come in with their laptops, plug in and be able to show or present things up on the screen. Right now, Lorraine was able to find sort of a quote and thinking that would be in around 10,000. We don't need the cream of the crop. We just need something really simple, I guess, in today's terms for that. So that's what we're hoping to do in 2027. 2028, we know that we cannot insulate the old girl. There is no space between the cinder blocks and the interior. And the walls are not even drywall. I don't know what they are. They're almost between a cork and a styrofoam. I'm not sure exactly what the walls are made of. She's really tired. She's really getting tired. So we were even thinking maybe just to remove the top part, leave the wainscoting, to remove the interior top half. If we can do a little bit of spray foam, that'd be great. I don't know even if that's an option, but to put real drywall and just to update it and paint the hall at that point. So probably we did ask somebody about pulling everything off. 2x4s to insulate properly, and 2 years ago, the quote was like 80,000. I don't think we're prepared to go down that road, but even if we could just do this, just to give us a fresh look. In 29 and 30, our goal is to do some work on the park. Don't know whether that's going to be just a pavilion or add to the equipment. I know equipment is super expensive and you're not gonna get much for 40,000 a year. So we really have to look at that and what we could do just to enhance the park. Like I said, maybe a pavilion. The trees we planted are not providing shade yet. So like I said, maybe a pavilion where we can put our picnic tables under, and then maybe just a little piece, a simple piece of equipment to add to what we have right now. So, any questions about our capital plan?
Questions from council? On operating or capital? I'm just wondering, increase in, rental, income, we air conditioning a year ago, didn't it? And, do you think that's had any impact, like, people asking about it or commenting on it, or?
We have more rentals year round that we didn't have before. Though still the summer was actually low this year in July. And we're not sure if it's people don't realize that it's air conditioned. But we have a more consistent rental all year. That we never had before, and I think the air conditioning contributes to that, definitely.
Good. Also, the price of electricity was up a little bit this year. I mean, your cost of electricity was
Yes.
up a little bit this year. So, you do need a few rentals just to pay for the extra electricity. But-
Yeah.
Any other questions from council? Councillor Webb?
Quick question, the 4-H was using the building and
Yes,
for free, right?
Yes, they do.
And they still do?
yes, they do,
Okay, I don't have a big problem with that at all,
Yeah.
just, and how often do they meet?
once a week.
Not all year though.
They start in October and they go through till April.
I think it's on, yeah.
Yeah.
That's good.
Okay, any other questions? So, good news, we're working on budget today, hopefully by the end of the day, we're done, but no promises there, and we'll let you know as soon as we, what things figure out.
Awesome.
Okay,
Thank
thanks
you
very
for
much,
everything.
thanks
Thank
for all you do at the hall. So,
Thank you.
good, 9:38, better wait for the, and then 45, so, Brett, can you do the, building report in, 7 minutes?
Sure, man.
Oh, no, sorry,
Dan's here, we've got.
who's doing the building report then? Daniel, are you doing it or Brad, sorry?
Just make it, you can wait it.
Yeah, that's it. Okay. Oh, all right, well, you wanna do the petition first?
Oh.
You got 5 minutes, no, let's do the building report, go ahead.
I'll take it. Morning, council. For you, we have the monthly activity report for October and November for building department activities. Through that period, 14 permits issued, gross value of construction reported there is 850. And permit fees through that period is around 15,000. Through that same period, 24 new applications taken in, 12 of those were reviewed, processed. And are awaiting final approval or amendments. 11 were submitted, complete, reviewed and issued, and 1 withdrawn, I believe. Through that period, do you want to advise council of some updates and correspondence you may have otherwise heard? So amendments, recent amendments made almost instantaneously, I would say, on the deferred payment to development charges for new dwelling units. So effective November 3rd, 2025, occupancy permits now required, which is a good thing, I think, for all non-rental residential projects. But also the plan with that change was an option to defer the DC payment until after or at time of occupancy permit issuance. The amendment does allow for the municipality to create a bit of a buffer there to confirm that payment prior to or at essentially the time of request for occupancy inspection. So it does give us about a 10-day window to confirm payment and receipt. And itemize or address any outstanding issues during that period. So it's a bit of a delayed period. However, the net benefit is that the owner, builder, applicant does hold on to those DCs until that point of occupancy. So staff are in the process of essentially changing the operational process so that we properly capture these changes and so that there's just few hiccups as possible. I can at this time, I can report that we've already received applications that are have taken us up on this new change. And have opted to defer DC to a point of occupancy. I actually issued one this morning, so on that basis. So this is early in the process. We're still trying to work that through internally, operationally, make sure that there's as few hiccups as possible. But we're working forward towards that. An additional amendment that does affect building operations that is more in the vein of the Planning Act is the second point on your agenda there under correspondence. So on Monday, November 24th, 2025, we were given notice that there was an amendment, a regulatory amendment made to the Planning Act, essentially creating an allowance for a 90% variance to the prescribed setback distance identified in the zoning bylaw as written under section 34 of the Planning Act. So that includes our zoning bylaw here in Southwest Oxford. The long story short here is the effect of this is still somewhat, very simply worded, it's a one-line regulation. However, the impact of it is still, we're still trying to wrap our head around exactly how far it may be taken in terms of the applicability to real in situ setback establishment for real buildings in place. Whether or not people can apply for a lesser value is still a bit subject to interpretation. We're not quite sure exactly how that's going to fall out at this point. So there may be some, I'm bringing that to council's attention in case there is some confusion in the community on exactly what this regulation was meant to entail. As you can see, it's very fresh. We're talking about like less than 2 weeks here. We were given no previous heads up on this change. So there was no lead up for preparation or question and answer period. There was no consultation, so. So lots of movement there. Additional to that correspondence, I did receive confirmation that the significant court case that I mentioned earlier, or appeal, sorry, I should say. Court of Canada, the appeal to the Superior Court as relates to deferral of the period at which someone, or the discoverability period for continuity of building permits in process or in effect. That appeal did appear to, I was given heads up that that appeal was dismissed by the Superior Court, so ultimately I will follow up with a report to council on what that means as relates to our scale permit inventory and what we can be looking at on the go forward as relates to the how we need to look at that entire issue without saying too much there. That did just come through during this period as well, so lots of correspondence to communicate on this report, but other than that, questions if any from council.
Okay, any questions from council? Councilor Gillis first.
Through you, Mr. Mayor, just a question on setbacks. I'm just a little confused of the wording here. Is this, I read it a couple different times, 2 different ways. Is it 90% of what is allowed or within like a 10% difference of what it would normally be allowed? Like what's the, it's worded kind of funky.
I agree. Where that is exactly the crux of the question. We're not really entirely sure at this point. We are seeking clarity from the ministry at this point, because before we start really utilizing this, and this is an effective immediately change. It is in law at this point, like it is in force, in effect, full effect at this point. We haven't had an opportunity to exercise this interpretation yet in practical terms. But if and when we do, we want to make sure that we apply this correctly so that we don't create or establish any impacting precedents that could be negative to the community in the long term. So that is, Councilor Ellis, that's exactly the question I have, along with a few other questions. But yeah, I'm not comfortable giving you an exact answer because I myself don't know at this point.
So, yeah, like what I understand, like if your setback was say 100 feet and like I could be 90% of that, I was like, well, can I be 10 feet closer or can I be 90 feet closer? Like, that's a big difference, and like the clarity's not really there of what exactly it is, so I'm kind of disappointed that.
If you were,
If you don't know, I'm not gonna know, so.
if we were to read the letter of the law, because it is so. It's shortly worded, there's really nothing to allow for any. Latitude in interpretation, I should say, or deference of interpretation, so, it's very hard when they make these types of regulation with no lead up, with any preparation, we think we know what they mean. And we think it means that if you had 100-foot setback, to use your example, requirement, say a 30-meter setback, 10% of that 30-meter setback, effective 90% of the overall minimum setback. So 90 feet or 10% of of 30 meters, so 27 or so meter setback. It's really hard to do to know what the ministry is thinking these days without having them specifically prescriptively tell us, so. I think that's the case stuff.
Councilor Wade, you're next.
Yeah, what's our building fees collected to date? There wasn't a total.
Right, there, under the report, there was no year-to-date total. I did quickly, crunch some numbers here this morning. And I believe that our year-to-date is somewhere, and Brooke can correct me if I'm wrong. According to Cloud Permit, it's sitting around 238 or so, right about now. I don't want to put, pressure on.
We've only collected 165,000.
Okay, so that's,
Yeah, with this, 180, 90,000 with the November numbers in.
No, that's up to today.
That's up to date.
165,000 is what is collected as of today in the quarter.
on the year for permits issued under 2025.
Okay,
Right.
Okay, thank you.
all right, thanks for correcting me on that. So, any other questions? Quick one, comment on the setbacks. Couple of problems. My understanding is, from talking to others, that the intent was to get rid of all minor variances of 10% or less. The problem with that is, does that mean that it's a 10% less to a flood line or a fill line or another property or whatever? And it isn't clear because the way it's worded, it's you only apply 90% of your restriction. So if I want to get 10 feet closer or whatever, I just move 10 feet closer and it doesn't require my variance. Just application. I think that was the intent. The problem is, as you point out, it's far more complex than that. Because there's all sorts of questions about, is it 10% closer to whatever? And so anyway, the other question I had was maybe more concerning for me is development charges deferral until occupancy. How many buildings do we have from the past that didn't have, in fact, still don't have occupancy permits issued, but people have been living in them for years?
Mr. Mayor, I don't have an exact number on that, but I would suspect that there is a significant number of them where we have not. We do know from previous reports and previous data collection that there are a significant number of buildings that have been occupancy has been established. We can't confirm.
And that's sort of as far as I'm concerned, is not that it shouldn't have always been done. But in fact, this is one more reason why we have to be extremely careful to make sure that we do have the occupancies. Otherwise, I'm not paying my development charges if I don't have an occupancy permit. For us, it's the other way around. You're not getting an occupancy permit. If they don't care, I move in anyways, we're up to development charges. So I just raise that as a concern from my end, is that they've kind of put the shoe on the wrong foot here in my mind, so they should have paid them upfront, but.
To your point, Mr. Mayor, I raised similar concerns with the province in comment during the commentary period. This one we did have some lead up to. If you recall, the ministry did circulate for public comment on this one, I think 30 days in advance of making the change. But it was pretty much a done deal at that point, and I don't think they were, I don't think many of the comments weighed heavily in their consideration in moving forward with the regulatory change.
Okay, anything further on the building department report? Seeing nothing, none, got a motion and to receive as information, moved by Gillis, second by Wade. Result of the Council of Township South Tropical Street Report, PD 11/2025 Building Department quarterly activity report is information. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, that's carried. Let's move back then to the drainage meeting. And I'm guessing Chris Thompson, you want to come forward to the table and between you and Daniel, anything you wanted to say on this report?
No, not really. The drain's old and in tough shape, so it needed to be replaced. But some of it, but I'll let Chris take it away.
Thanks, Dan.
Okay, so for folks in the audience, if you're here for the drainage report, this meeting is to consider the engineer's report. If you want to appeal the actual cost or your cost, that comes at the court of revision, which should be held early January, this January, something, and you'll be informed of that. Okay, so if you have any questions about the design, this is the day, or any concerns about that, this is the day to ask those, and then we get to the dollars at the next meeting. Right? Everybody understand that? So go ahead, please, sir.
So, thank you, Mr. Mayor, and good morning, councilors. So Burnside was appointed under Section 78 of the Drainage Act for the purpose of improving the existing Whaley Drain A to help alleviate ponding and improve the conveyance of flows through the Humphrey property. The existing Whaley Drain A was originally constructed in 1909 and is a tile system servicing both agricultural and residential lands to the south of Brownsville. The total watershed area that drains into this system is approximately 302 acres, so pretty decent in size. There have been 3 previous reports for this drain, with the latest being adopted in 2006. The 2006 report noted that the existing drain was in poor condition and considerably undersized for the contributing watershed. However, this report only authorized the existing tile be repaired to keep it functioning instead of upsizing the system to current design standards. So it's important to highlight that the Whaley Drain A has not been upgraded since the original 1909 report. Both the 1960 and 2006 reports recommended repair to the original system. And that's important to highlight because currently as is, Dan can only maintain the current system to that 1909 size for maintenance purposes, which I believe is about a 12 and 14 inch tile. So again, upon review of the existing system, it was found that the current tile is indeed in poor working condition, with multiple blowouts being found during the field survey. Multiple repairs have been completed by the township throughout the years. However, the drain is not functioning as intended. I'm sure if you ask Mr. Humphrey, you go out on his property in the spring and you do see some pretty substantial ponded water. An additional on-site meeting was held for this project in October of 2023 with a follow-up information meeting held in July of 2025. During that information meeting, three design options were presented to the owners. So a 38 millimeter and 25 millimeter drainage coefficient design standard in combination with a newly constructed channel were presented for options 1 and 2, as well as a channel only design beginning at the confluence with the Bear Creek drain in lot 27, concession 11, traveling east through the Humphrey property, ending at the shared property line with the Kernigans was presented for option 3. The consensus from the owners present was to proceed with an option that was both functional and cost effective. Hence why we decided to present 3 options. After further discussion, it was determined that Mr. Humphrey would make the decision between either options 1 and 3, as the drain is located solely on his property. Mr. Humphrey elected for option 3, as this was the most cost-effective solution, but also will meet the design requirements we intend. And it should be noted that a follow-up meeting was held with Mr. Humphrey to discuss the location, at his property of the proposed channel. So the proposed works under this report, is the construction of approximately 819 meters of open drain, the installation of a straw bale sediment check dam at the outlet, clearing and grubbing of a working right of way in two bush areas on the Humphrey property, as well as some minor grading works at the upstream portion to ensure positive drainage into the system. The cost estimate can be summarized, which includes construction, property owner allowances, engineering, permitting, net HST interest, and sundry costs as $293,400. And we are anticipating approximately $93,000 in OMAPA grant. It's also important to note that following the construction of this new system, the existing 1909 drain will cease to have municipal drain status, so it becomes private. The township doesn't have to maintain it, but it will be left in place as we have shifted the alignment slightly per Mr. Humphrey's request from that original 1909 location. I now turn back to council for questions.
What, any questions on this report? Seeing none, any questions or comments from anyone in the audience? Concerns?
I have to ask one question.
Just before, just state your name and then go ahead and ask the question.
Les Hughes, I'm east of, actually, I'm the first property that feeds into the area. The question I have is, when we had the meeting in July, the question came up about cost of 1, 2, 3 option and the maintenance costs later. It was my understanding that the majority of the people at the meeting recommended that we go with the piping at the largest amount, which was number 1, right? Option A. And that the reason, I believe I asked the question, was if you go with option 3, which Mr. Humphrey wanted, which is above grade, the comment that the engineer made was that that would be the highest maintenance in the future. And the question, the reason I brought that up was, do we pay now or pay later? Because there was a significant difference in the overall cost, but the engineer, your people at the time, recommended that option A, which I believe it was 18 or 24 inch pipe, two pipes underneath.
Yeah, it is 224.
224 inches. Yeah. And you gave us the longevity of such construction. And I believe we're into multi years that it would last. So my big concern then and now is if it is still true that going with option 3 is going to create more maintenance costs for all the landowners in the future, why did we change from, we went around the table and everybody agreed, with the exception of Mr. Humphrey, because it was much more expensive for him to do option A. And I'm just raising the issue because I'm still going to be there hopefully 20 years from now. And if I'm going to pay in my share, as an example, I realize it's not a lot, but for me, it's a third more right now to go with option A. But I'm going to have 25 years whereby I don't have any maintenance costs. But it was told to me at the last meeting that option 3, or C, whatever you want to call it, my cost would drop by about a third, which means about $2,000 less. But there would be not annual, but every so many years, I would be hit again with a maintenance cost. That's the issue. That's the only concern I have. And I would welcome if anyone else, or the other landowners have the same concerns, but anyway, that was my biggest concern. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Hughes. Anyone else want to raise any issues? State your name and any questions? Seeing none. The decision now is up to council to decide whether they want to cut the report as is or make any changes. Daniel, any comments from you?
Yeah, I mean. The channel option is cheaper, maintenance wise, I don't see it getting up to the price of the pipe anytime soon, to be honest with you, the price difference wise, so. I mean. Yeah, I think the channel is a good option, cause I mean, to go on brush fire, as long as we stay on top of it, we're not looking at very big maintenance costs. Every 5 years or so. I think the channel is the most cost effective option, to be honest.
So what is the difference between option A for underground versus the channel, like gross cost difference?
So through you, Mr. Mayor, the roads cost difference, or what do you say?
No, the gross,
The gross costs,
the difference between underground or on top of the ground is how much?
I wish I had that on the other hand, but I wanna say it was nearly two times.
So this one's 293, I think you said?
Yeah, and we were looking at close to a little under $500,000, I think. A little over $500,000, sorry.
Quickly, 200,000, 250,000 for 200,000 for interest. Pays a lot of maintenance, but just, that's what I was thinking, I'm sorry. Okay, any other questions from council? Seeing none, is there a decision? The recommendation from staff is to proceed with the channel. Correct, Andy? Yes, correct. Yeah. Okay. Motion. Councilor Gillis, please.
I'll move that we support the motion presented by staff.
Recommendation from staff. And do we have a seconder? Seconded by Wade. Oh, here it is, okay. Moved by Gillis, seconded by Wade, result of council township subdivision to accept the report attached to the appendix A to report DD 11/2025, prepared by RG Burnside and dated November 14th, 2025, regarding whaling drain branch A in accordance with section 78 of Drainage Act RX 1990, chapter D17, and further the council approves a bylaw in the form prescribed by the regulations with the engineer's report attached to it for the first and second readings by council, at which point the report shall be considered to be adopted and the bylaw should be known as Whaley Drain Branch A original bylaw. So it's a motion. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, that's carried. Court of revision will be, do you have a date for it? Probably January 6th. Does that work for you, Chris?
Yeah, that's sure.
Okay, so probably January 6th, you're all invited back and you'll get notification. Okay, thank you very much. We are down to other planning. That's you, Julie, so we're board meeting.
So this report is to provide council with an update on the status of the township strategic initiatives as of the end of the third quarter in 2025. The intent is also to support council's preparation for our annual strategic planning session, which will hold at the first meeting in January, so on January 6th, 2026. I've included in here a summary of where we are at on some of the goals and objectives that we discussed to date. This is an opportunity for council to share any comments, ask any questions that they may have at this time. And then I've also included some information in there and some questions for council to give some thought to between now and our first meeting in January. So that we can come back and revisit this in January and talk about the priorities that we would like to set for the last year of this term of council. With that, if there's any questions, I'm happy to answer.
Okay, questions or comments from council on this report? Thanks for doing it. So, let's see, I mean. Seeing nothing, we have a motion to receive the report's information.
I just wanted to make one comment before that.
Go ahead.
Just well, with the engagement forum committee, we've been, bogged down by the township's communication strategy and. I don't know where we can go from here, but we've tried a lot of different venues and, the uptake seems to be fairly slim. So, that's gonna be a tough one to work on.
Despite the fact that we try to put more information out more regularly, either through social media or even having council meetings online. We're not getting hundreds of people forward. That's a waste of people. Leave horse of water, we can't make it drink, so. Which I think is, the engagement forum committee would say has been their biggest challenge, is that. You know, how do you engage or inform if people aren't interested, so. Anything further? Councilor Gillis.
Just a question on the sound quality and challenges with our meetings. I know that has been brought up by a few different people with me. Is there anything further we can do when we have meetings in this building to make the sound quality of our meetings better, or is that kind of a cost prohibitive kind of thing?
So I have heard that this system we're using now is better. Are you continuing to hear concerns from the public that it's not good?
At times there's challenges.
Okay. So I did receive quotes on other options. However, they're very expensive, like in the range of $75,000 to $150,000, and that's for systems like what the Township of Zora have and Township of East Zora Tavistock. In this space, using this is better than what we were using before, but it really is a matter of needing to speak up and speak loudly. We could look at bringing in the system that we have just to amplify the sound a little bit more. We could try that and see if it works, but the only issue with that is the microphones, right? Like you need to be speaking right in the microphones that we have. So we have looked at some different options. They're just very expensive for something that's higher quality and likely will provide better sound consistently. But it's something we could revisit again in the new year if you like. Our thought was if this was working, we would leave it for now until we're in a new permanent space. And then we would get something that's wired in.
Okay, any other questions or comments on this report? Seeing none, if we have a motion then to receive the information, moved by Booker, second by Wade, resolved Council of Township Subject Doctor. Receive report CAO 43-2025 third quarter strategic plan progress update as soon as possible. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Petition for drainage works, Daniel.
Yeah, the purpose of this report is to bring forward a section 4 petition signed by Nico Van Hacker of Backer View Steeds. He requires an outlet for the northeast part of his farm. He currently doesn't have an outlet. Staff recommending that K Smart Associates be appointed to complete the report.
Okay. Any discussion on this? Councilor Perry.
I don't know what case smart. Maybe I should, but I just don't.
They've done several for the town. They did the code was 76 there last year. For those drain section 76. They've done lots. They've been in business for a while. They've done a lot.
Where are they located?
Kitchener. Well, they are.
Yeah.
So we have used K Smart in years gone by, we kind of moved to Spree for a fair amount,
Yep.
Headway is another one. that I'm
Yeah.
And for so. Any particular reason for K Smart?
Well, I have other engineers appointed for other ones, so I'm just doing case.
Spreading out the work, but,
Yeah,
okay.
spreading the word out, and they do, I'm always happy with their work, so.
Good.
No, case marks.
Recommendation, any other questions on this report? How many other, people are affected by this?
Only. Probably Nico and two other farms, potentially, and then the roads, I guess Macbeth Road as well, that would be it. It's a small watershed, so.
Yeah.
He already has a drain on the. West end of his property, but he can't access it to tile this section of the farm, so he needs. Let.
So where would is there nothing ditch immediately north there somewhere?
No, it would enter a tile drain. Which
Okay.
goes into, eventually goes into Halls Creek.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I know where it goes, I guess.
Yeah, but there's a tile, it would outlet into a tile drain, and it goes to a tile drain, yeah. Which hopefully has a capacity, but the engineer will find that out, hopefully we don't need to go in. Cause it's a fairly new, I think it's late '70s, the outlet, that will be for this drain, so we should be okay.
Okay.
So.
Any other questions on this one? Seeing none, do we have a motion then? Moved by Pickett, seconded by Gillis, result, council township result of Dr. Subdivision for drainage works received from the land and Acker View Hosting Limited, and further the firm of Case Marks Associates Limited be appointed to complete a new report according to section 4 of the Drainage Act of 1990, chapter D 17. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Budget item discussion, so Brooke, what are you gonna tell us on that? This is kind of an overview of what we've done so far, and I guess at some point looking for council to give direction to staff as to whether this is final. So, go ahead, Brooke.
Yeah, so I did have a summary of our last discussion. There were a few small changes, but we do still end up in the same position where we started. Just the addition of the culvert replacement on Farm Road. Public Works discovered this last week that this is a required replacement. So I did add that in. I had us down a little bit right under 9%, and then I needed to add this back in. So that brought us right back up to where we kind of started. I have not received anything from OPP yet, so that remains at 11% increase. I don't know what that's gonna come in and more when. If you want to talk about any of the presentations that we saw today.
So, Councilor Pickard, then Councilor Gillis.
Yes, I'd like to, I think we should have a discussion about the refill as a request. In light of the report from the CAO, there was concerns raised. So I would like to have a discussion. Is this the path we want? Discussions, like, we've got two very competent board members or on council on that committee. Is this the direction we want to go? This staffing request with benefits? It's quite an expensive line there. So Zoran, Montner, and they in touch. I think CA's report suggested that our agreement was just cost of living. I read that before correctly. So I'm bringing it up for that reason, to you wrote a report, let's talk about it.
Go ahead.
So just, since we're all in open session now, just the information I wanted to share is I just wanted to remind council about what our funding partnership agreement was with the Beachville District Museum. There have been some significant costs there over the last several years, which are over and above what our agreement provides for. Our current agreement goes until the end of 2027. I really just wanted to share all that information with council at the now, so that just could give some thought to it, knowing that our agreement does currently come to an end at the end of 2027. And I believe that we are gonna have to look at the terms of that agreement once we renew it for future funding partnership with Township of Zora. So I just wanted you to kind of know what our agreement says versus where we are at now. And there are pretty significant capital costs coming for the museum. We didn't have all of the costs and know exactly what the township share was gonna be when we agreed to partner with ISSA funding. And that information has been coming to us kind of as the project moves forward, so I did want to provide council with some information on that. We know that there are other capital works that are gonna be required to that building. There is an issue with the roof at the front of the building. The exact cost of that, as I mentioned, it could be anywhere from maybe 20,000 to 75,000, depending on the extent of the damage once the top of the roof is removed and we can see what's underneath. And then we also have, you know, the continuation of the barn renovation project. There is still some ISSA funding there, but there is quite a significant cost to the township to complete that project in 2026. I really just wanted to bring all those things to council's attention and maybe have a conversation about that and the direction and what council would like to see moving forward.
Okay, so, Council Secretary, are you making any recommendations or suggestions, or you just want to have the conversation first?
Well, I want to understand it first, like, so I still wonder, is Zora on side with this? Are we prepared to negotiate this prior to the end of 2027? Because that's what we're being asked to do.
Yeah.
The board is asking us to renegotiate our deal. The other part of this, which is not outlined anywhere, is that there will be a burden on you as well in this office, because those people will become staff. Will be treated like staff.
So they won't be staff in the sense of supervision, they're just added to our benefits
As
policy.
far as benefits and homers and all the rest of it,
Yeah.
you'll have to do all that work as well. So I wanna make sure we understand what we're getting into, wanna make sure Zora is on. And are we prepared, the question is, are we prepared to renegotiate this before we have to? So that's the two board members here, so tell us why you're going this week.
Can I speak to you?
Go ahead.
Okay, so I was at the board meeting when the Warden Up to Grove report was presented, so similar to like what we do here for market evaluations. The board was in a position where they were trying to figure out salaries without having any guidance. So the board agreed to go ahead and have the report prepared by Warden Up to Grove, and they paid for that report. The recommendations that were brought forward showed that the museum staff are underpaid quite significantly. And recommended that we raise the wages to the 50th percentile, as Stephanie mentioned. So different phasing suggestions were discussed, but the board asked that it be phased in over 2 years. So this year represents year one of that phase in, and then the next year there would be, I believe, an additional 5% for salaries, wages, and benefits. All of the members of the board want staff to be appropriately paid, just like we would here. I don't know the outcome of the request, this year's grant request with Zora Council as a whole at this point, similar to ours, it just came to us now. I know there are some concerns among Zora representatives about the rising costs and, you know, the benefit for that cost. I think that it would be good for us if we having those conversations with Zora by the end of next year, what the future of this agreement looks like, so that we can have some more certainty going into 2027.
Councilor Ray, sorry.
Zora has approved the budget that was presented. A week or so ago, the two representatives took it to their council meeting. Their last council meeting, and they approved it. I look at it, costs have gone up significantly by quite And I have a few questions whether we need a curator and an assistant curator. It's not a big museum. I do question that. And I know we can't predict the future, but I do have concerns with the funding agreement that's in place when it's no longer, whether Euro will be wanting to renew it. So, but that's that. Well, it is high. I'm not denying that, but in fairness, we like, you know, if it was staff that was underpaid, we would probably say, okay, we need to look after our staff. And I think that the museum, the current curator has done a phenomenal job with that museum since she's been there, turning things around and seeking. And she has found a lot of grants that were never offered before. So there is that, which is kind of a bonus. Not a big bonus, but the curator has found a lot of grant money that we never had before. I guess if there is a curator will be going on a maternity leave in January, so there'll be some savings in what this budget was just presented because she will not be on the paper. So there will be, at the end of 2026, we should be able to ask for a percentage of those wages to come back to the township. So that's only going to be for 1 year.
They're not hiring someone to replace you.
They're just going to move the deputy curator into that position on a temporary basis. And they will just increase her wage just a little bit to offset what she's doing. And as of right now, they did mention at our last board meeting that we're getting an assistant curator, but they put that on hold for a while. Because we're in our winter months right now, so our deputy curator is very capable right now until we get into the busy season, whether she'll need someone down the road. But as of right now, it'll just be a curator and no assistant curator.
Other questions or comments? Councilor Bergner.
I think, in the great scheme of things, museums are never really a, revenue generating, business. It's trying to remember our past history and, things that made us the way we are. So if it's either you decide to toss the thing right out the window or, yeah, you just, pony up. To keep it going.
Councilor Gillis.
I think that you talk about, being a good employer and paying people appropriately, and I think we do that with staff here. Why wouldn't we do that with other staff that work for our organizations? Council also needs to remember that the two positions are contract positions at the current time. And the curator's position was contracted for 4 years. There was no inflation, no cost of living added to that in the last 4 years. So obviously, that was a cost that the township didn't see moving forward. I think that both townships agree to pay middle of the road and be fair market value. We've hired this company to do that for our staff. This was their recommendation. We just had this at our last council meeting and I know Councilor Pickard said, hey, we should do this. It's only a small fee to make sure we're on pace. Well, this is what the board went out and did, and this is what the recommendation is. And the scheme of payment is the same concept of both municipalities that are paying into this. So I think it's only fair for what's being presented. I know it's a cost. But that's how we do business at the township office. So why wouldn't we want to do the same somewhere else? If we were to do something differently, that would kind of make us kind of hypocritical, I would think. As far as ISA planning, yes, those costs have gone up, obviously significantly. Board and even the councils, I think, didn't have necessarily all the information when they signed this agreement. Of course, from 2019 till now, we all know that construction and building costs have rose significantly. So that's gonna be applied to this. You know, it was a big investment from the province and the federal government for putting money into this. If we had to put all this funding into this alone, that'd be another 100,000 over this term. So I think we're lucky to have this. I think, you know, it's been outlined in the plan moving forward of being able to protect the artifacts in the building that's there and upgrade it. Yes, there's a significant cost there, but it's planned to be done, and as per that agreement that was signed, it needs to move forward. After this is completed, I think there will be other costs, but obviously with an older building, there's gonna be construction issues or things that need to be replaced. And as every other building within a municipality, we wanna keep them in good shape, so it's gonna cost money to maintain it, and I think we knew that from the day that became a museum, that there would be costs, and we went ahead and did our plan of all our buildings and stuff that was estimated. I know the curator went back through that report thoroughly to kind of check on some things at the museum that were kind of missed, and glad they were highlighted. So I think everything's been mentioned there. But I think moving forward, we want to continue this. This is the path we need to go down.
Go ahead, Councillor Davis.
Mr. Mayor, my comment is, I do believe that a museum is growing, am I not right? 2,000 more visitors this year as opposed to last year. So along with growth comes costs. So that's all I want to say.
Councillor Wade, you want to comment?
Yeah, I have an issue with the no cost to go through the museum. If you look at her, I'm kind of a history fanatic in some ways. I've been through Annandale House, since I've moved to Telsmurg, I had to pay a cost to go through. I've been to the one in Godrich, I had to pay a cost to go through. I believe Ingersoll has a cost to go through their museum, and I really struggle why Beach Road doesn't have a minimum, a cost. I mean, it's not gonna put everything into the black, but it will certainly be something that I think they need to do. That's been a debate. I can remember when I went on the board back in 2011 or 10 or whatever it was. There was a minimal cost, and they just weren't getting, people would just come to the door and they said, well, we're not paying that. And they just turn around and leave, and that's why they dropped it. And they did have the donation, but that doesn't work the best, to be honest, believe me. And I mean, the numbers are high for people who've gone through the museum. But my guess is a lot of them numbers are repetitive people. They go to the car show, they go through, they sign the book, they go to the next car show, the next month they go in the door and they sign the book. So whether they've gone through or not. I mean, it looks good on paper, whether there's actually been that exact amount go through, I don't know. So I think I don't know, Councilor Gillis thinks about this, I would really like to see them have an admission fee at the door. That's just what I thought. I don't know how great things go about it.
Go ahead, Councillor Gillis.
It's debatable. I think it's half a dozen one and a dozen the other. I think you can go either way on it. I look at it, the museum, they last a while from when I moved to Beachville. You know, we knew there was a museum there, but it wasn't actually part of the community. What it is now is a big pillar of the community. There's events always happening. There's stuff going on. People go down to the museum going on. People host events at the museum. It's not necessarily traffic to the museum per se. It's a place for, you know, we have lighting of the lights, we have car shows, we have events at the museum. People, you know, barbecues and one of the social events. You know, the other day I was there, there's people out taking pictures, walking the grounds, like it's a benefit to the community that doesn't show on paper per se, that we're lucky to have. It's just, it's tied in, I think, with, you know, our Easter egg hunt that we host there. Fire department does fire prevention when the Easter egg hunt goes on, and you get a bigger crowd because of the events that happen there. There is a benefit that doesn't show financially on paper, to the community as a whole.
Other comments? Councillor Wade.
One more comment to what Councilor Bugner said. the cost of funding the arts and what's the word for culture sector of our society is very, very expensive. And I think we need to be aware that it's not a moneymaker. It is you put into what you can and you kind of suck it up and move forward. Because you look around, a lot of these arts and culture things are solely funded through municipalities and stuff, so. It's a tough sell to have the museum strictly generate enough revenue to run on its own, I really think, but. That's where I stand.
Any other comments? Okay, so, let's deal with this one first, then, we have, both the, museum and the, Durham Center Hall. This morning, what's the direction on the museum? You gonna approve the budget or not, Councilor White?
I move that we approve the presented budget.
And there's a second. Second by Booker. Any further discussion on that budget? So, as Councilor Wade just pointed, arts, culture and recreation, are always going to be the, subsidized event. And, when you look at how much people spend on subsidizing things like that, you realize that this has to do with social values and cultural values rather than return on investment values. So, what's the cost of having it? Yes, but what's the cost of not having it? I tend to agree with Councilor Gillis that there's other values, and this is where I would encourage the board of the museum to use the facility to whatever extent they can, and to encourage as many activities there as they can. And they have kind of an amphitheater there. I'd encourage you, let's use it then. But anyways, any further discussion on this? All right, all those in favor of the museum budget? Opposed? That's carried. Recognizing that in the next year, we're going to have a serious discussion about future funding. So, the other one is Durham Center. Any questions or concerns about the Durham Center budget? Councilor White.
I have no concerns, so I would make a motion that we approve the budget request from.
Moved and seconded. Any discussion that would include the 2026 capital budget? I'm just trying to remember what that was.
Well,
That was the resurfacing and recovery.
And then they're gonna add a trolley or.
Trolley. The budget doesn't say that. The budget says resurfacing and recovered. And our share is $3,750. I'm just looking for direction here. Are we changing the budget number, or are we suggesting that they figure out how to do it for the total of $5,000? Councilor White.
I made the motion, so I suggest that we approve it as presented with the $5,000 capital project. I wouldn't think a trolley cart would be a real expensive item. I don't know.
Okay. So we approved $5,000, or sorry, approved their budget at $5,130.
And a capital project.
And a capital project at $3,750. Our share, their shares, okay. Any further discussion? Move, Councilor, figured that was right with you, okay? Any further discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's great. Let's get back to the budget then. Starting on the review, is there any items under the action items? Councilor Gilbert, please.
Just a question through your Mr. Mayor to Adam about this culvert on Road River. Does this culvert, what happened to it?
Thanks. The culvert is just east of Carn east of Clark. County Road 6 on Carn, on the bottom of the hill there's a 1.5 meter culvert there. We did some work to the outlet last year with hopes that we could kind of limp it along for another 5 or 10 years. But it's not working, so we're gonna replace the whole thing. It's not a big culvert, but it's deep, so it's gonna take us time to get to it. Yeah.
So is it the first dip or the second dip in the road?
Just, if you're familiar with Brownscombs, it's just east of Brownscombs, so.
Yeah.
So the first
East
step,
of-
yeah.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
The first step. Yeah.
Well, a little bit of a dip as you drive off the road, but, anyways, okay, anything further on that? And the budget then, we have in here the Rotary, Ingersoll Rotary Club zero, but the Ingersoll Food Project, $4,000. We actually had a request from the food project,
No, sorry, I just moved that there because I
Yeah.
thought you were going to reach out and ask them.
so I haven't got their budget yet, that's my fault, not theirs. But I would suggest that they haven't actually asked for any.
No.
So if we decide to do an in-year reserve transfer. I'm not sure whether you want to put it in reserve or not, but I'm just suggesting that. I wouldn't put it in the budget until I ask for it. Okay, is there anything else on the community grants? These are the kind of action items, so we told staff to do last time. Okay. Under health services, Mount Cemetery did ask for the 8,000, right?
You did, it's-
We're offering them 6.
Right.
All right. Minor hockey, Tillsburg minor hockey has not come forward.
Okay, so they did
They did?
this past week, yeah.
Oh, okay.
Um,
And did they ask for $2,000? Did-
They just reached out wanting to come today, and we said that the agenda's already set. So they could let us know if they wanna come to the 16th meeting, but we have not got them again.
Okay. You wanna do anything with that?
I think we should put 2,000 back in.
Okay,
They very consistently asked us for money over the years.
Yep.
We can put it in if they don't come, we won't give it to them.
okay, so adding 2,000 there. Anything else?
Yes, Mount Community Center, we discussed those 2 line items on their operating budget that we're transferring profit to capital account. We discussed it briefly and then we didn't return to that.
Right.
So it's about $5,600 in total. Fundraising profits specifically, and then operation profits specifically, they have it on there. But that is driving up their operating grant request.
Right.
And typically, we do not do those types of.
So if they make money fundraising and want to put it in their savings account, I don't have a problem with that.
But that already happens, when you fundraise, you put money out. And then you make money, so the net of that is sitting in your fundraising account. It's there.
The fundraising account, or is it in their general account? Because that's what I thought it was, in their general account,
It
and they were transferring.
No, everything, physically, yes, there's one bank account. However, we track it separately, we track at all boards fundraising separately from their operating. They all have the 2 separate.
I'm confused.
Yeah, I was a little confused, but I think I've got it figured out. I think if they do a fundraising event and there's fundraising expenses, if it's a gain, that amount either be transferred out or automatically moved to the fundraising account. There shouldn't be a separate line or a separate, and it should not be a different amount than the difference between the fundraising and the fundraising expense. So if you do a fundraising event and you're making $2,000 and your expenses are 1,000, it should be 1,000 that moves. It should not be an amount that's more than. In my mind.
Or less.
Or less.
So are you suggesting, or that they've already moved the money, the net profits from the?
Yeah,
Because that's the way I was reading it, was this is the actual net profit that they wanted to move over, and the net profit from operating, in other words, money that they saved. They were also moving over. I wondered about.
that's also anticipating that you are going to make that money, you don't know that, it hasn't happened yet. Like I said, at the end of each year, when we do audit, if they have an operating surplus, it goes into their operating surplus account, and every board has one. So that way, if they have a deficit in a year, it's covered by that surplus, accumulated surplus that sits there. So there isn't, it just, you're anticipating that you're going to get a profit on both operating and fundraiser, but you don't know that's actually gonna happen. What if, you know, something that needs a large repair at the hall, it's coming out of your operating. You know what I mean? You can't really anticipate that you're going to make those profits. And again, as far as capital goes, we already pay 75% of the capital costs. When you, this way, if we add to their operating grant, that means we are also paying for that capital, that amount of capital twice. We're giving it to them in our operating grant, and then we're also paying 70% of their capital projects.
So, the answer is, folks. So one was 2880 for the fundraising profits, the other operating profits was 2790. I struggle with the operation or the operating profit. I realize they want to put it in for future keeping, but we already do that. So what's the decision of council on that?
So just clarification, reword this to what? They're asking to put money into
Capital accounts.
capital accounts.
Mhm.
So basically, if they do that, then we fund their capital accounts, correct? 75%.
This is their 25.
You're hitting us twice. We let this go a year ago. We brought it up a year ago, we let it go. So here we are again.
Your recommendation, Councilor Pickard, would be to not allow this stuff.
Yeah. Yes, but it's a tough one, Dave, because I hate cutting words. It's sort of, you know, grassroots group on it.
But the flip side is we shouldn't be funding them twice, right?
That's right. So we did it last year, so.
So they're just trying to find the line here. Others fundraising, well, they are showing $1,970 expenses and 4,800 in income. That's where they get the 2880
Right.
from fundraising, okay.
Yeah.
So it actually balances here.
It does.
That's what I don't have a problem, that's what I thought. It's the 2790 that bothers me.
Yeah, so if
So-
those were not there, that their expenses would be much less, and therefore so would the grant. By
So they
$5,600.
would reduce the grant from 14,700, 12,000. Well, 11,900.
700 figure will really be. There's.
Councilor Booker, sorry.
Yeah, and I know just for Brownsville one, and Brooke had it set up, because just if your budget is better than what it is for the year, then that just goes into an operating account, so that if you have a bad year, that's where that comes from. It's not, and so you are trying to balance out so that the capital cost balances, or like the grant balances out what you thought you might lose over the year. So, but if you do better than that, then it goes into an operating account so that you can draw on that in case there's an emergency repair.
There's a reason we have the same template for budget for every all board that we have. Here on theirs, they're adding lines to add these amounts, because that's generally not there, because Nobody else does that. They've created their own lines to drive up their operating grant.
So I still get 11,900, $910. So right? If you subtract two, the 27,900 from the 14,700.
So 11,900.
910, that's what I've got, yeah. So. Directions from council here. So what we're doing, setting the grant to 11,910,
I think so.
okay. All right, so that one's cut. Then the Myopen Community Center capital project, additional storage for the current year. So we're not moving ahead, are we putting money in reserve for it?
No, we haven't moved any of the reserves for that.
So there's not actually. Because in their budget, 600 square feet of additional storage space. They're showing us paying $64,000 in 26 and $64,000 in 27. Are we putting that 64,000, that would come out of recreation reserve, it's not a tax implication, but. Are we putting that in or not? Councillor Gillis.
Didn't they move that to 27 until our decision with another building is taken care of?
I'm just reading it out of the budget here, so.
But
That's what,
the presentation I got out of it.
Okay, all right, good, so now it's taken care of. Anything else? Over replacement, OPP. Yeah. So, we estimate, or we've been told that it can't be more than 11%. So the trouble with sitting on more than one committee is that you find out things like the province is offering a 1% increase to public health from their base funding. They're supposed to pay 70% of, well, 100% of some programs and 70% of their other. And so for the last couple of years, they've given us a 1% increase when, the contract for base staff and now they're 2 or 3%, we're falling behind. So their 70% this year works out to 59%. The 59 is now the new 71 or 7. And that the municipality, Oxford, Elgin, and St. Thomas are paying 41%. Because they're not paying their 70. So I asked Brooke, would it help to suggest that we're anticipating a 1% increase instead of 11% and put that $100,000 into reserve or back to. I'm guessing that I know what the answer is, but maybe we should ask Ernie. We were supposed to know by the end of November. So we're sitting here trying to pass a budget and we don't know what the 11%, which is $120,000, something like that. In rough numbers. So I'm just wondering, that's another one we don't know. So staff have done the right thing in my mind, they put it in at what they anticipate is a match and hope for better. Councillor Pickard.
and we do have money in reserves in their protection reserve for police.
But we took some out of there this year as well, right?
Right.
So we already took some of them.
Yeah. So I don't really want to mess with the 11%, just to. When I see the problems one way, they say, oh yeah, we're giving you a 1% increase. And then we're asking for an 11% increase. Doesn't seem to balance in my mind. Councillor Gillis.
So if we were supposed to have it by the end of November, what's the odds of having it before the end of December?
Not good.
No, seriously, you want to pass a budget and like. We can pass it with that 11%, but it would be nice to actually know that number.
So. We're not gonna know it. I don't think unless we got an email this morning We're not gonna know it today. It's one of those things that, all right, so the increase today. Remind me of what we did, we changed from May today, we added $2,000. And. Did we remove the $4,000 from the universal food project?
No.
We're just leaving it in reserve and.
The universal project, would you wanna do that? You wanna just remove the 4,000?
No, Pecker just said no, I'm not saying just we should, I just like to see their budget before I. He's saying it's,
Yeah, when I said leave it in, it was anticipation that we'd get her.
okay, all right, I'll follow up on it
Yeah,
again,
that's all. It's-
okay. We took 2,700 out of, almost 2,800 out of the, Mount Elgin. Did we add anything else? The 2,000 to, for the, skating club? But.
Minor.
Yeah, minor hockey, sorry. Counselor Berry.
Well, the 15,000 for the total,
16.5.
how much?
16.5.
60. How much of that is labor?
And then not broke down on me, but good part, probably 70% of it will be.
So that labor is already in the budget.
No, so this will be one-time funding line in that budget
Okay,
for this culvert.
so is it your staff that's gonna put the culvert
The
in?
majority of our staff, we will hire an excavator to do it, Browns will do it, but it will be majority of our staff there.
And they're not getting paid somewhere else in the budget.
If they don't do this, will they be doing something else? Yes, they
They will
would.
do something else, yeah.
Yeah, that's all I'm saying is it's,
Yeah,
So part of the labor cost is offset by savings in another
yeah.
ditching or something else, right?
correct.
So Councilor Pickard, and the answer is,
Well, I don't know. The answer is?
The answer is either way, the culvert's gonna get replaced, so.
so the actual budget for the culvert, which is what staff have to bring forward, is the 16,500. The actual tax implication is somewhat different because the day that the staff are working there, they're not working somewhere else on grass cutting or roads or whatever, right? So there is a slight decrease somewhere else in the budget. But we also have snow in November this year that we're
Yeah.
so.
We could be over labor in as a whole, we won't know what this.
Yeah.
This one's gonna do, yeah.
Councilor Booker, are you next?
Yeah, just a question for Daniel. We've done a lot of drainage works in the last couple of years when I've been on. Are they net revenue a wash? Because like our costs are covered by the drainage. Like their net revenue, zero net revenue.
Well, they're covered. The road share.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if there's no road shares, it doesn't.
No, we recover all the
Yeah,
costs.
okay, that's just a question.
Well, actually, we don't cover all of it now, so we end up budgeting for. Right,
Oh, we have to
Well,
pay
if there's no roads assessed into the drain. Clean out maintenance, then we cover all the costs.
Yeah, okay, that's what I wondered.
But if there's a road, a lot of time there is road assessed because people cross the road and drain into the drain, so.
but our net at the end of the year. That has a drainage superintendent. Is not covered by grant or all other costs, all other revenues. We end up paying money to have a drainage superintendent.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
Okay, I thought-
I just wondered, each project is in,
Yeah, theoretically.
net revenue neutral.
Okay, anything further? I'm just looking for, how do you want to deal with the budget? It's 9 point something %.
Sorry, so am I leaving the Ingersoll Food Project?
Apparently. Waiting for a request, 9.14, yeah.
Because it was my understanding, we just didn't want to give it to the Rotary Club, right? We wanted to
Yeah, but we're
direct it
waiting
to
for a
the-
request from that, so that's why I say I'll follow up and ask for their budget. Because I think we should see their budget before we actually give them $4,000, and the council thinks otherwise, okay, happy to do whatever you want. I'll follow up with them this week. Okay, anything else we wanna change in the budget? So 9.14%. So I asked the CEO this morning, what we do to get that down, and you said. We're firing anybody.
I'll do that. Sorry.
You could add more revenue.
Yeah, that'd be nice. Well, this is a very difficult budget. I think everyone's aware, we do have a pretty big hit this year with Cammy. And the revenue we're expected to receive from town of Ingersoll under our boundary adjustment agreement. We've taken a worst case scenario, and that's what we've included in this budget. I know it's challenging. I think that council's made some good decisions in terms of beefing up some of our contributions to reserves for emergency communications equipment and emergency equipment as well as communications. I think those are needed. I think that while this is a very difficult number, I do think that this budget will set council up well for everything that we have coming in the next 5 to 10 years.
How much have we increased our expenses in this book? Like I estimated is about 2.5%.
Approximately.
So that's a good question.
Yeah.
Mhm.
The reduced revenue or the forecasting for like property tax write-offs is about 6%.
6.2. 6.23 to be exact.
So we're a little under 3%.
So, but cost of living is 1.8, so you could
Yes.
say we actually increased the budget by 1.2%. Approximately. That's right.
Not that bad.
I'm not arguing, I just sort of say, council needs to be aware before they pass the budget. Councilor Gillis.
I think we've done a good job from what was originally presented from staff and what we've fiddled with. We've kind of ended up back there again. Like really, we have. So I think in all fairness, that's a good job to the staff of what we needed to do, and we added our little tweak on it. Other than the outstanding OPP thing, I think that's where we're gonna end up.
So. Any other comments? So, Councilor White.
So right now, we have the 2,000 in there from Tillsonburg Minor Hockey,
Added it back.
and we have the 4,000 in there for the Ingersoll Food Project.
Yes.
I mean, that's only $6,000, which isn't a huge number in our final result for our budget, really, right?
Less than 0.1.
What's that?
Less than 0.1.
Yeah, I'm just saying,
If we cut those, it'd be 9.13. Well, we all feel that.
I mean, the hockey grant is cheaper than owning our own arena by far. So I don't have a problem with that. But I would kind of like to see some kind of a request from the Ingersoll Food Project. So
I'll make sure that they know that, so.
and could that be, we have a report from them before the next council meeting?
I'll see what I can
Okay,
get for the next meeting.
okay.
Okay, one thing that I did wonder in my mind, I was trying to get it under 9, Like 8.99 would have been happy. One way of doing that would be to, and I'm not suggesting this because I wrestled with this one. We increased the contributions in the SCBA to 50,000 a year. Do we do that for 25,000? That would get you 8.8 or 8.9, I guess it was. I'm not suggesting that. I'm just saying, I think we did the right thing to move it to 50. But if anybody else was really wanting to get it under 9, that would be one that would have zero impact this year. But would impact somewhere down the road, like somebody's gonna pay that eventually, so. Oh,
I was going to make a comment on that one.
go ahead.
That, because in only 4 years, I believe, if we look at the capital plan for that, we have a $500,000 cost for SCBA.
And so I was just trying to, desperately look for things that would help out a bit. If in fact, policing comes in at 1%, I'm gonna suggest to put that other $100,000 into reserves for other things, but I don't think it's going to, so. Just throw that out, that was the only one that I sort of thought, it's absolutely not essential this year, you could, but you're robbing Peter to pay Paul. Like in the future, so. Counselor.
Just on that same discussion. One of the things that's been in the back of my mind is our interest earned. One of the things that happened in 2024 was we had this big surplus. And we were told a lot of that was increase in interest rates. So is that trend still, is that in our budget? If we put enough money in for interest? Like, my reaction when I read that. So we did, based on what I was told with the 2024 budget, we were over because of all this interest we earned. Then I looked at our 2025 and 2026 projection, I thought, well, that's not showing all that interest. So it's just one of those things that I wondered about. I never took it anywhere because I have 100% trust in you.
So you do show interest in the overall budget,
Yeah.
interest income, I forget what it was now. But last year, because of increased interest rates, we did better than anticipated.
But interest rates haven't changed us.
So in 2024, we were only budgeting to receive $25,000 in interest. In 25, we increased that to 75,000, and that's where it is for 26 as well.
And
This,
we actually received how much in 24 or 5 in interest?
200.
220 something.
And then in 2025, this was at the time of printing, but it's 90,000.
Yeah.
So at the end of October is when I printed this, so you were at 90.
Yeah,
90, okay.
Yeah,
but then we spent a whack of money that buying land, right?
yes.
That we no longer get interest on. So
Yeah, so maybe that's what.
it's not, it. Maybe a little bit of, but we're not looking at $100,000. So. Okay, any other comments on the budget? When I ask, is anybody prepared to move the budget today, or do you want to wait till the next meeting? I'm not sure that the impacts are gonna make any difference, but.
I would move it today, it's gonna do.
I would second. So moved and seconded, as amended for today, as amended today. Okay, any discussion? So will we see a budget bylaw next week or 2 weeks time?
Yes.
Okay. Hopefully by then we will have the police thing, but I'm not hoping for any good luck there. Like, the most who gets 11%. Guess I'm gonna be 10.9999, if it isn't above, so. Okay. Moved and seconded, any further discussion on the budget? All those in favor? Opposed, that is carried. Let's take a 10-minute break and then we'll come back to the consent agenda. Hey.
in St. Clair area, and they're not happy about that. The government has kind of said that they will help some of the cost of doing all this amalgamation to cover some of the costs. But once it's all said and done, there may be no funding from the government, and it'll all be, all conservation authorities will be funded through municipalities. So that is a huge concern for not just Upper Canada, almost all the conservation authorities. So they are really concerned. They've said that there'll be no layoffs at all. I find that extremely hard. When you look at the amalgamate, what Upper Thames will go into, there is going to be 8 conservation authorities, so you're gonna be, if there's 8 general managers, you're not gonna need 8 general managers. And all the board of directors for all these conservation authorities, those numbers will probably be reduced. Staff will probably be reduced, but as of right now, the government said, saying that there'll be no layoffs. I swallow, so I struggle with that. So.
Yeah, and our, Cactus is quite concerned about it as well, because all your watersheds are local people, so they know what's going on, they know what's going on. Down the road for 2 or 3 years, if all staff and everything are accumulated into one group, then the decision for Oxford County or Southwest Oxford could be made by somebody that's down in St. Clair and have no clue what's going on. And when you're, like I said, from Walpole Island to the north of Waterloo, it's a 300-mile trip or 300 kilometers. So there's gonna be a huge amounts of travel time and everything else that they're not even anticipating. But the biggest concern is that they're downloading everything on the conservation areas onto the municipalities. When we've been already cut from 170,000 down to 45,000 this year. Over a 10-year period.
So, in fairness, what percentage of the, Councilor Wade, what percentage of the Long Point board, or what percentage of the Long Point budget comes from provincial government? Less than 2%?
I was gonna say about 2.3, I think.
So 2%. Not that I had a long conversation with Ernie about this a couple weeks ago. 2% is about the rate of inflation. So quite frankly, if an argument and the same for catfish and everybody else, you're looking at 2-3% of your wages or less, or funding is coming from that. If the province were to just disappear and didn't pay a cent, on the next budget would we even notice it? And the reason I ask that is, if you're not paying the piper, then you probably shouldn't be calling them too. And that's the part that bugs me about this whole thing. If the province were paying 50%, I'd have no problem with them saying, we want to restructure. But in 1994, I think it was, when I first went on Upper Thames, they were paying a reasonable share. I'm trying to remember how much it was. And that's when they got cut down to 5%. And it's been decreasing since then. So that's one of the issues here. I actually would prefer that the province just cut it off and leave the conservation authorities up to the actual municipalities and let them decide when they want to amalgamate or if they want to amalgamate. And as far as losing, is there going to be potentially 60 directors in the new Erie Conservation Authority? I would suggest we get rid of some of those. When I talked to Ernie, he said there was too many that were not elected. And I said, no, Oxford, there isn't. Every single one that I know of that sits on a conservation board was elected in their municipality.
we have one at Upper Thames, who was not an elected official.
But not from Oxford.
No, not from Oxford, no.
So Oxford did their bit, they elected and they appointed elected people. So one out of the board of 15, 14.
Yep, 15 on the board of Upper Thames.
So doesn't seem to me that that one appointment would make a huge difference. Where in public health, they keep adding another appointment, another provincial appointment to try and balance. I mean, they're not gonna get 50%, I hope, but anyways, so. But board members are not employees in my mind, and therefore you can cut board members and you haven't cut any employees because you're not full-time employees, so. Anyways, I think there's arguments one way or another, but it comes to me as, if you're not paying the bill. Take a hike. And thought of another word, but, I think that's. If you're paying 15 or 20%, I'd say, yeah, you should have more say. You're paying 2%. Just. Take your bag and go home, I'm not interested. Anyways, other comments, what do you want us to do? Councillor Gibb is not here, I'm sure he would echo the same thoughts, but. I think the big concern in my mind is the amount of assets and the amount of reserves that some have collected. And, they're not gonna go into a pot. So if we had a 5% reserve policy and you had a 10%, I just gained 2.5% of the reserve, right? Or if I had no reserve at all, so. I'm just wondering what, from you wanted a discussion, what is the, outcome you were hoping for?
Well, I think as a municipality, we need to be supportive. There is a couple in the consent agendas that we need to be supportive of those two requests or three, or whatever it was. Let them know that we are kind of on their side, that we don't think this is a good idea. It was meant, they were asked, the province was asked, one of the, why are you doing this? And there were some objectives and some rules that they would like to see. They think every conservation authority should have the same rules, and I kind of agree with that. Like, if you go from Upper Thames and the Lower Thames, they have different rules from one conservation authority to the other. And I think it would be better if we had across the board with conservation authorities, that they should all have the same format for rules and enforcement, and I get that. So they said to them, well, this is what you want, just ask us and we'll do that. And they just said, well, no, we'll do that. So we know that it's done how we want, or properly, whatever. So I think they've been told that, let us do what you want. Tell us what you want and let us work at getting to what you want. Like bringing these rules in, because I know when they formed the, source water protection committee between Upper Thames, Lower Thames and St. Clair, one of the first things that they realized that when they got together was there were 3 conservation authorities and they all had different rules and regulations towards the source water. Well, if it's gonna be a provincial thing to be source water, wouldn't it be better if they were all on the same playing field? I think.
Yeah.
And so I can see where the province is saying we need to be more level and on the same playing field, but that's what you want. Let the authorities do that and try to achieve it without changing everything up.
So are you suggesting a letter? I'm just selecting staff to write the letter right now.
Well, basically the ERO, is it, or whatever they call it, that you can make submissions.
Yes.
Cuts off the 20th of December. So it's a very short time frame for complaints or comments on this change. And so I don't know, we need to back it up that, we're, as a council, we're not happy with the possibility of this big amalgamation and things that are happening with lightning speed.
So, yeah, have you heard enough that you can write a letter? on behalf of the township? Okay. Anything more than that, like? I'm just,
I think right now that's all we can do, because we still have so many. We got more questions and none of them are getting answered through the process, so I think this is a start.
so I think there's some questions though that you might, we're not just. Cause I heard you say you're not 100% opposed to the idea of change. I.e., uniform or standardizing regulations and enforcement. I'm concerned about control when you're not paying the bill. So it's a lot easier for, probably easier to have to do something if I don't have to pay the bill. Right? Than if I do have to pay the bill. I mean, I may want a catalog if you're paying for it, but if I'm paying for it, well, something less expensive maybe. So, the other thing I do think the idea of how much assets each brings compared to their liabilities should be considered. So if you look at Upper Thames as an example, 3 major dams, which are 3 major expenses over the long term. Apparently not much more expensive than a whole lot of little dams that we can get rid of. But so there's different, like the amount you need in reserve at an Upper Thames might be considerably different than what you need at Kettle or Catfish. Number of dams you gotta replace, number of facilities you gotta replace or keep up for asset management. So those are the kind of questions. How does that get evenly spread out? And how do you balance one CA with another? If one CA is actually, kept everything to the bare bones and doesn't have a penny in the bank. And another one has money either from bequests or donations or whatever. Don't people in that area, because they paid for it in taxes or they deserve that. So.
Just a quick comment. So Wyerton, in the new format of the amalgamations, they will be working with Thunder Bay.
Yeah.
That's a long drive.
But there's a gap in between. On the north shore of Lake Superior. The Thunder Bay to Wyerton CA is not a contiguous.
I didn't know that. They were talking about it.
Either that or I misunderstood the map, but.
I just thought they said that Wyerton would be.
Yeah, Wyerton's in with Thunder Bay.
With Thunder Bay, and I thought, wow.
I think there's a blank there.
I'd have to look at it again.
Yeah, anyways, not important for today's discussion.
No.
I do know the warden has written to a couple of the conservation authorities, encouraging them to be wise or diligent in their budgeting. And I suspect it has something to do with making sure that if you have reserves that you don't want lost, you might want to use them up now rather than in the future. And quite frankly, this is your last budget if the province moves ahead, because in 2027 there is no future. So. Okay. Letter. You'll send something and we'll. Or maybe okay. Anything further on Bill 60? Okay, I wanted to talk for just a couple minutes on the future of the lower tiers. So a couple weeks ago, heard a rumor about the province was thinking of getting rid of the lower tiers, and that that everybody would be a one-tier government, and that obviously Oxford would be the upper tier, they would getting rid of the lower tiers. That you'd be one tier, and that in Oxford would be up there. So talking to the warden, and he said, I'll reach out to the Ministry of Municipal Affairs. Haven't heard back from him, talked to him since, so. But the next morning, I got thinking about it, thinking, that has a significant impact on Southwest Oxford. For example, would you build an administration building if in fact we weren't gonna be there? And, childcare I might still build. Library probably would be willing to go that far. But I would be reluctant to spend a whole lot of money on administration buildings. That unless I had some other purpose in the back of my mind that was actually building it for, so commercial or whatever, right? Like, but you don't usually build an office building designed to be resident or commercial or whatever. So, and if I were gonna build something commercial in Mount Elgin, I think I would want to see the secondary plan first. And then B, actually build it for that purpose and not some other purpose. So that kind of raised the issue. So I called Ernie about this and he pretty clear, nope, that was never gonna happen. And he had no information at all about that happening. I said, oh, good. You know, I said, if you hear anything, like even a whisper, you might wanna let me know so that we don't go any further staff time or resource on a proposal. We may need to rethink that whole proposal, right? So I left that, and then was it the next day or the day after that, Premier Ford was in Woodstock, meeting at the home lumber place there on Dundas Street, and then over to the hospital. And I didn't make it, but talking to a couple of the councillors, county councillors that were there, one of the statements was that in Niagara, there was way too many elected people were just getting in the way. This is what he was telling the builders. And that in Niagara, there was one elected person for every 4,000 people. 500,000 people, and they have 125 people. Well, when immediately does the math in Oxford County, and we've got one for what every 2,200 people or so. So if there's way too many in Niagara, I'm guessing he thinks there's way too many in Oxford as well. Didn't say it, but I kind of thought it smells a little bit like a message. And so it just raised the concern again with me that this may be rumbling around. And in fact, if you're going to do anything before the 2026 election, that may be the time to do it. Right? I have no evidence at all other than a rumor and a offhanded comment about too many elected people. So I raised that because I think council should be aware of it. And maybe we should all be listening or asking. And I'll talk to the warden about, did he have any luck with the Ministry of Municipal Affairs? So, anyways, any comments or thoughts? Councillor Durston.
My thought on that whole situation is, should we not do some preparatory work? Should we not put the bill on hold? I wanted to do that. This seems like a really good idea to do it. Hold, just put it on hold, just until we find out. And my comment about I've wanted to do that. I wanted to speak to council about that. Is this the time to go forward with the bill? I don't know.
That's the problem. I don't know either. I wish I did, because then it makes the decision a lot easier. But I also don't like saying, well, the sky may fall tomorrow, so I'm not doing anything today. And in my mind, you always gotta keep moving ahead. The problem is not knowing what direction ahead is. Councilor Parrish.
So the worst case scenario is we build the building. Everything's amalgamated. Well, the building is still there, which is a good news. It'll be owned then by the county. And it could be repurposed.
Yep.
And that would be good for Mount Elgin. We could have whatever in there. So I'm kind of thinking it's not, the worst case scenario is not the end of the world.
So, having said that, and I agree, that's why I say that the problem with an office building isn't really designed for whether it be housing or whatever else, right? But it could be. And I think we're gonna know in the next few months, which should say to me, keep proceeding at the, don't take offense, at the pace of where we're going. Because we're not gonna have a shovel in the ground before summer, and we're gonna know before summer, Mike. But I would say, well, keep moving ahead as business as usual until you know otherwise, but it's the same with the land there. We've built nothing there. We already own the land and the land across the road. There's two opportunities for some kind of housing or other development. Or simply sell lots back off and develop them as building lots, right? So that land has never been a worry to me at all. It's, that's what you said. Fortunately, they're not making any new land, so it's good. Anyway, I just wanted to raise the issue. Councillor Gillis, please.
So to that point, like the province under this administration has done this before and they did their little surveys and whatnot. Was it 7 or 9 municipalities when they did it last? And it went nowhere. They spent all this money and it went nowhere. So like, what's gonna be different if they were to do it again? Would they spend all that money and do nothing, or would it be more their new approach? This is what we're gonna do and just do it. That would be the more concerning thing to me than. Like I thought last time when they actually did a review and had people actually come and interview people. Okay, they're gonna do it. They're gonna go through all this work. You would think something would have come out of it. But like, we got nothing.
Right, well, the report was never made public.
Yeah.
So, and which kind of raises, does that go on like last winter's snow, and this is a new year with new snow, and therefore we got a new idea, which is, let's go through it again. I think politically, for the party, it would be a bit of a gamble to do that at this particular time, even if you got a majority. I mean, they can easily do it. But rural municipalities have been pretty good for this government. That's what makes me think they're not gonna do anything. But on the other hand, one does not want to ignore every red flag you see out there, because some of them actually mean something. But don't worry, staff, because we'll make sure you all have jobs. Even if none of us do. So, okay. Anything further on that? I more wanted to make you aware. Okay, let's go on to consent agenda items. Sorry. I think it was oops. Consent items 1 to 30. Dave? I got 30 here. Anything there you wanted to raise? Councillor Pickard.
I just wanted to ask a question on one. And then talk briefly about the second one. So.
Which one are you starting with?
Number 4, the solar project.
Yep.
Now I understood solar had to go on class 4 land, or you couldn't build it on crop land. So I'm just wondering how this fits.
County owned land? Back. I mean, I know it's county owned, but they're reseeding it into natural prairie grass type. And putting the solar panels up to basically offset the cost of or the energy used by wastewater.
I kind of got the why. I just wondered how they got around the legislation.
I can ask, but that hadn't come up. And it works out to be approximately cost. I mean, they show it that makes a profit, but
It'd be hard to even break even. We learned that on the Beach Hill situation with our solars there.
well, it depends whether we use a time of use or like if you go time of use, it actually does much better than if you don't. But anyways, I'll follow up on that.
Okay, and the second one I wanted to talk about was the Sammy,
Yes,
I think it's 20.
25.
25.
Just to let everybody know, that's December 16th at 2 o'clock in the afternoon.
It's not Friday,
Yeah, and we probably should go.
so I've got it down to go.
Yeah, I do too. We have council that night, but, this is gonna be a hot potato. For at least maybe 5 or 6 neighbors.
Good.
So we should be, just an awareness.
Okay, so on that one, since you brought it up and I was gonna bring it. It says in that notice that the information is available for viewing at the township office, which is not correct. We have the link. So you can look at it on your computer, we can do that from home, but it says for public viewing. And the date says in public notice Friday, not Tuesday. And the third thing about that one is it's actually at the chicken barn on Curry Road, I think is the site, which doesn't seem like a public thing. Like I didn't think that was
Yeah, I don't know where we're gonna,
well, they got a shed there, and for all the people that show up there, like there's a heated,
shed, okay.
very small.
Small, yeah, but it's heated,
It's big enough for this.
so it should be fine.
And I just, the actual location,
This is gonna be the next hot potato.
so, okay. Anything else?
No, that's all.
So I actually reached out to Rob Stoll, whatever his name is, yesterday. And he's gonna correct that, so the county nor the township actually have the printed documents and it says they're available. Okay. Anything else?
Well, I also wondered about the concern that this was a public meeting, but it was on private property. Is that being overlooked? Is that normal?
Not sure it's normal, I think it's
I know
under they have to have public information session open to the public, so like, I don't think there's a rule says it has to be in a public facility.
No, I was just gonna say, because we've got a couple of these now, I wonder if it might be helpful if we just put some communication on our website generally about this application process, so people understand. There's 2 parts to this process. They have to do their own community public engagement first, under the requirements of the ministry, and then they will come to the municipality for the development approval applications and public meetings that the planning act.
So
So I-
another public meeting. This would be organized by zoning or
Yes.
by planning.
Yes,
Both meeting will be here theoretically.
Yeah.
Same as any other
We could
zoning
clear
change
it out.
application, same county, they'll have they need an OPA, but they'll need they may need an OPA, but
I don't think they need an OPA, I think they just need zoning and site plan for.
okay, that's full township.
Yeah,
Okay,
so, but maybe if I just put together some general communication and put that up, we do have all the details for the other pit. It's on Hamilton Road, right?
okay,
So that, all of that's posted online, once we have all of this, we'll do the same. But I'll send out and post some general information about the process to help provide some clarity on that.
okay, anything else on consent agenda? Go ahead, Councilor White, you wanted.
Items 23 and 29, I think we should support, they're from Catfish Creek and
Okay,
Cattle Creek, yeah.
okay,
So,
everyone agree to that? 23 and 29,
And we'll also run most of this up to
26 from now to 10,
so.
no, that's
Oh,
me,
sorry,
that's it.
meeting schedule.
Just want to make sure.
Okay. Anyone else? I wondered about 16, letter of support, town of Ajax solve the crisis. Around housing. There's been an awful lot of talk from the upper levels of government, but not very much action. So I wanted a letter of support for that. I can get a mover or seconder to. Counselor
I
Wade
move that we support, item number 16.
and Counselor Thurston will second it, so you can put that one in as a letter of support as well. Unless there's opposed, anyone opposed that? All right. Conservation Authority is Counselor Wade, I think, moved it, and and Counselor Buchner seconded it. Okay, anything else on the consent agenda? Okay, then the motion now reads that the following items be noted and filed, and these following items be responded to, so.
No, I can read that out if you'd like.
Go ahead. Well, motion for the consent agenda, moved by Pickard, seconded by Durston, and the motion would read.
That council of the township of Southern actually receive items 1 to 15, 17 to 22,
24,
24 to
no. 23 is, 23 and 29, right?
so 17 and 22.
Yep.
And then
Number
24
Oh, sorry, 24.
to 28 and
Nope.
30.
Oh, no, sorry, you did do the Sammy, 25, that's what I'm reading back, it's okay. Yep, you're right, 23 to 28 and 30. Thank you. I was, 25 written down here. Okay, Councilor
What
Wade,
did you just say? 1 to 22?
no, 1 to
1 to
15,
1 to 15, okay, I got it.
17 to 22.
Yep. I got that, yeah.
Okay. Any further discussion? Oh, do we have a mover and a seconder for that?
Yeah, we did it. Mhm.
Who was that?
I moved. You seconded.
Okay, all right. Figured and Durston,
Okay.
moved in second, the consent agenda be noted and filed. All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Then number 16. Councillor Durston, you're gonna move that? And Councillor Wade seconds that one. Letter of support. And then the two conservation authorities are Councillor Wade and Councillor Buchner moved and seconded.
Yep.
Okay. You got all that? You need any more votes? No, okay. Thank you. Okay, so I think we're down to accounts payable. Do we move in a second for accounts payable? Moved by Gillis, second by Wade. So the following accounts be approved for payment. Accounts payable for November 16th to November 29th, 2025, $485,367.77. Payroll number 24, $67,950.50. Payroll number 11, council, $8,669.82. Payroll number 11, fair, $30,428.68. For grand over $592,417.77. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Is there any question on any of those? Okay. And bylaws for the Whaley Green, this is.
Do I leave or plug my ears?
You can leave. We'll make it, you go. Don't worry, I'll only take a second. We have a mover and seconder for the Whaley Green. Moved by Pickard, second by Durston. And the reading is.
The following bylaw may read first and second time, bylaw number 73-2025 to provide for drainage works for Bailey Drain Branch.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? That's carried. Well, back in, Councillor Buchner, thank you. Any notice of the motion? Any other new business? Council roundtable. Councillor Wood, you're first.
Okay. Sunbird. This Thursday, we have the Christmas luncheon at noon at Durham Center Hall. I have a Upper Thames meeting on the 16th, an added meeting at Upper Thames on the 16th in the morning. Yeah, the retirement party for Mary Ellen on the 17th. We're at Oxford Hills. at 3 o'clock, I believe.
Yep.
That's it. Rentals at Pullman's Hall are full swing, so we got lots of rentals, so all's good.
And Councilor Booker.
Not a whole lot to report. The Christmas tree lighting went off without a hitch. And the craft show the next day, I think the weather was just way too nice. They had a very poor turnout. Everybody was out raking leaves and cutting their grass for the last time before the snow hit. I do have an upper Thames or a Cactus Creek meeting on the second Thursday. And other than that, things are heading towards Christmas at a fast pace.
Good. And Councilor Gillis.
Thank you. Reminder for everybody, lighting of the lights is at the museum this, Friday night. I believe it starts at 6 with lighting at 6:30, right?
Yep.
So, always a great turnout there, despite whatever the weather is, it'll be happening, so that's great. Beach Parks and Rec, the pavilion at Lowville Pond was completed, looks great. Thanks to the local contractor who did it for us, and we did have a bike rack donated to us, so it was mounted as well, so it looks great, so that's wonderful. And there was one thing, it'll come to me probably after the meeting, but yeah, that's it.
Okay, thank you, Councilor Gerson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Very quiet in Ward 3. Tonight is the Selkirk Hall Board and Julie will be attending, and thank you, Julie. The airport had their meeting on last Thursday. It was a productive meeting. They had a delegation. And they seem to have some concerns, or some of the renters there or leases have a concern about getting the internet into their buildings. So it's brought up there.
Yeah.
But it's not completely in to all the buildings. So there was a cost from the road.
Yes.
So that was one of the concerns that they had, and of course, the trees to come down, still is a problem. But I think they'll be working on that problem for another bit. There was conversation about selling off the land at the airport. And that's been on the agenda for probably the last 4 or 5 agendas. So tonight at Selkirk Hall, I think they're just gonna be gearing up for Christmas and the events, and we know, or I know now from the last meeting that we had, that our bookings are just going wonderful. And that's about it.
Good, thank you. Councilor Pickard.
Last Friday, we had a rural Oxford Economic Development Corporation meeting. It was at the Fuller's Hall. It was nice to have it close like that because the weather was terrible. And the parking lot got cleaned just in time. Julie was there, which was good. We did approve the budget, and will be 5% increase. Tomorrow we have an environment and energy meeting in this room at 4:30. Saturday night is the old fashioned Christmas at the ballpark in Sweetburg. It's at 6:30. And I did mention before our next meeting, December 16th, the meeting in Sam, so Sam. That's my report.
Good, thank you.
Mr. Mayor?
Go ahead.
2 things that I've forgotten, I'm very sorry. Could I speak on them now?
Please do.
Thank you. So the Engage and Inform Committee is not meeting tomorrow. They're meeting on December the 18th, and that at that time, we're doing the Christmas tree decorations or lighting. And then I'd like to mention that there is a tour. It is December 14th, correct me if I'm wrong. Well, okay. And it is for the young folks that were in the
That's it.
Thank you, the essay.
What are they touring?
Oh, they're touring Southwest Oxford. David has a wonderful plan figured out and.
Really is a wonderful time.
So it does. I think, one of the individuals that's going to be on the tour is going to be super interested in what you have out there in the shop. And after the tour, we're going to the museum as well, and after the tour, we're landing up at the airport for lunch. So the children will be able to see some airplanes lifting off.
So, remember again, Joanne's son,
I see.
Isaac,
Mhm.
Isaac Tour and Lauren, Hamilton, are the two, winners. And so they get on the tour, on the 12th, starts here at 9 o'clock in the morning. So. And the CAO will, give an amazing tour of the office. And then Adam's gonna give them a tour over there, and then one is, 6 or 8 things we're gonna go and see before lunch, or late lunch probably, so.
What was the
Okay.
date? Sorry, what was the date?
Counselor, hey,
I sent you the 20.
Yeah.
well, so
December 12th.
somebody's gonna be there, and if they don't, then,
Oh,
I
yeah,
hate to see what their job evaluation looks like. So, Counselor Waits,
I forgot to mention that the new fence has been installed at the park in Fulton, and it looks phenomenal. They did a great job.
Yeah.
Wrought iron fence long enough. So side of the street road there, yeah, it looks great, thank you.
Okay, I'll check that out. So Fence Center Pavilion there installed, I have to check out this week, so, okay. A couple of quick things, from my perspective, county budget will probably be passed, next Wednesday. Not sure where it's going, because there, seems to be a lot of, movement in the background as to, things that are gonna happen there. I think it's looking like 5%. So, that's net of growth, so, yesterday, the day before, we got a notice from Executive saying that they're completed the 2025 bill, which is good news. And, so, have you paid them? Okay, so we'll talk about that in a few minutes. And then the third thing I was gonna mention was the, youth tour, or the tour of the two youth on December 12th. So, the Val are taken, so. Anything else? Nothing I can think of. So, okay, no closed session?
No, next one.
Okay, remind me, I'll give you something else for the closed session, next time. We're ready for the confirmation bylaw. We have mover and a seconder for the confirmation bylaw, moved by Wade, seconded by Thurston, and the bylaw would read.
With the following bylaw be read first, second, and third time and finally passed, bylaw 74 of 2025 to confirm all options and proceedings of council for December 2nd, 2025, and further that the mayor and clerk are hereby authorized to sign the bylaw and think it's appropriate, so.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. I need motion to adjourn. Moved by Pickett, seconded by Booker. We adjourn at 11:50, or we got 11:58. To reconvene on December 16th at 6:30 PM. Any discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, that's carried. Just remind everybody, it is 12 noon on Thursday.
Yeah.
For lunch, and encourage everybody to come out if they can, so.